everybody, and welcome to the Prevention Perspective first video. I did a video talking about what I was going to be doing, but this is the real actual first video, and I thought it would be, it just meant a lot to me to have Hope alongside me because you know what? She was there, not necessarily there with me, figuratively with me when I was working, but she was at home. She was at home taking care of the kid while I was working just crazy hours in the retail. And if you work retail, you know what I'm talking about, especially in management. So I was like, you know what, I wanted you to be the first one. So she's gonna ask me questions and things like that about cases because you know what, she was the one that when I got home, I told her what happened today, right? So, we'll talk about that stuff. And but here's what's funny, right? My first day in prevention is the first day that I met her, right? So tell a little bit about that.
So my very first job was working at Target, and that's where he was working too, but he worked at a different Target. Never seen him, nothing. My family, a lot of my family had worked at Target. My mom worked there, all of that. So I was very well known at the store that I worked at. And so one day I'm behind the service desk doing the working service desk, which was my favorite part. I love that position. And I guess you had walked in. I don't even remember this, honestly, because I was probably busy working. And legend says that he told the guy that he was training with. His first day in loss prevention was training at my store. I guess that's where they did the training.
That wasn't my original store. My original store was somewhere else, but I had to train at the store that she was at because my boss was working. That was his store along with the store that I was going to be in once I was done with training.
So he was kind of going back and forth there. So I guess legend has it that when he walked in, he told them, who was that? Which was me behind the service desk. And he said, I'm going to marry that girl. Yeah. And the rest is history. The rest is history. So go ahead and tell me.
So that's basically was it. I that's where we met, and that was 1993. Yeah, almost 33 years ago. So yeah, that's how long we've been together. And here's another funny story, or quick story to that. In the times that I was training and she was working, I never caught a shoplifter during that time frame. So I was always either auditing when she was working at the service desk and stuff like that, just having fun. So so that's how we actually met within retail. But I did that for 15 years. Most of that time frame, I actually worked at Target. So most of that also was in South Florida. Started actually in Palm Beach County. I did work in Broward County for about a year, which is almost getting down to Miami, and then in Indiana for a long time as well. So, but we'll get into all of that and the retailers and stuff that I worked for, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hours. I already mentioned that before. A lot of hours. So, and what's weird is, I feel like I probably worked, and maybe you might feel differently, but I felt like I worked more hours at Target, and I only had one store than I worked in when I went to Radio Shack and became a regional there. Yeah. And I initially had 122 stores, but ended up with 144 stores. But I felt like I worked less hours there than I did at Target because, man, I put some crazy hours into Target.
Yeah.
And because I know you remember, I would say, hey, I'm coming home
I'm on my way out the door.
Yeah.
And literally he'd get stopped.
Yeah. Because, shoplifters and employees that are stealing do not care that you have a wife and kids at home.
Yeah.
They don't care. They are going to take whenever they're ready. And I would be literally just with my bag or my lunch bag or whatever, getting ready to walk out the door. And I'm just kind of like this, just, oh my gosh, I hope nothing happens. And boom, something would occur. And I'd have to stay for another, whatever. Whatever was done. It didn't matter.
All of that, yeah.
It never waited. So now sometimes it did. Sometimes I would say, now in shoplifters, no, we wouldn't wait. But if it was an employee situation, maybe if it was the first time that we maybe identified something, then we'd have to build that case. But it really depended on what was going on at that moment.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. So I mean, what do you?
All right. Well, how did you get interested in loss prevention? Because Andy was not. That wasn't his first day with Target when he started at loss prevention at my store. He had been doing all kinds of things at Target. So how did you get into loss prevention?
Well, I started at Target in June of '91. I actually started working in a brand new store. They had just built 4 new stores in South Florida, Palm Beach County, and I started working as a supervisor, but in the back room. And it was crazy because I actually remember the interview. It was at a job fair, and I interviewed with the store manager, one of the best store managers I ever had, ever. He was amazing. And I was 20 years old, and I had a necklace on. I had a football helmet because I played football when I was in high school. And that's what he talked to me about. He didn't even interview me. He was just like, "Oh, did you play football or something?" Yeah, I played in high school. He's like, "I used to be a high school football coach." And we just talked about football. And then he goes, "I'll be right back." And he left. And I was like, well, I guess I didn't get the job. I was just looking for something part-time. I was happy with the other job I was doing. And then another guy walked up, again, one of the best managers I ever had. His name was Lee. Sat down with me, introduced himself, and he's like, "Hey, I want to offer you a supervisory position for $7 an hour. Working in the back room Monday through Friday." Yeah, Monday through Friday, 6 to 2:30. And I like looked around the
unheard of.
Yeah, and I looked around the room and I'm like, I think I'm like the youngest person here. I said, "No way, no one's going to listen to me." He goes, "I'll help you with that." And that's where I started doing, unloading of the trucks and getting it all prepared for the store and all that stuff. Did that for a while. Went to receiving, learned how to do the vendor stuff. And but here's where it all kind of happened.
Yeah.
So at some point, this is in '91, sometime during that time frame, I was leaving for the day. And I remember I was walking with, I remember this. I was walking to the front of the store with my Pepsi vendor. And we were just talking because you get to know these people. You see them every single day. And we're walking up and I'm about to leave for the day. And I see who in 2 years later, right, roughly, became my boss. And he was the loss prevention or asset protection manager. And his name was Don. Loved him to death. He was one of those guys that he either really liked you or he really hated you. There was no in between for Don. He was just an amazing guy.
Too.
And you knew.
It was not a secret.
And he was kind of waving me down. And I said goodbye to the Pepsi vendor and I said, "Hey, what's up?" He goes, "Hey, listen, we're about to stop a shoplifter. This guy's a pretty big guy. And I was hoping you might be able to give us a hand." I'm like, "Yeah, of course. I don't mind doing it." And so we were just kind of waiting, and then I see the guy coming. And he goes, "That's him right there." And this guy was huge. I mean, he was a big man. And I was like, whoa, okay, now I kind of know why you need some help. So the guy walked out the door, and the undercover, really good friends with later on down the road, walked out behind him, got in front of him, identified himself as loss prevention or asset protection. And the guy just punches him in the chest. I mean, and Jason was really skinny, and he hit him, and all I saw his chest just kind of wrap around this guy's fist. And the guy was much bigger than him. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And Jason just kind of falls back, and then he gets up, and it was on from there. They started going at it. And so I was like, I'm just going to give him a hand. So I ran over, and I hit the guy from behind, and I hit him like just trying to chop his legs out from under him. He fell down. I mean, he couldn't get up because he was so big. And we just kind of held on to him until the police arrived. So once it was all kind of settled and the dust settled, then Don said to me, he goes, "Hey, if you ever want to do this, let me know." But it wasn't until 93 when I said, "Hey, I want to give this a shot." And kind of that's where it all kind of started.
Yeah. So how long were you doing it just an undercover before you got promoted?
So I started in 93. So I think it was August of 93, right? And so I did it. I was a asset protection specialist. So that was the, as far as the tiers for the undercovers, that was the number one of the lower end of it. And then about roughly a year or so, I got promoted to a senior APS. But that's still hourly. I was making nothing. It really was. It was crazy. And
And we were already married by then because
Yeah, we were married.
If you didn't know, we dated for 4 months and got married.
Yeah.
So
And so I got promoted to a senior, and I was making like $9.50 an hour, I think is what it was, right? But I really wanted to be a manager so badly. Jessica was born December of '94, and then '95 comes along, and we get some unfortunate news that my dad had cancer. So here I'm trying to, kind of go through my promotion process with Target, and I'm working like crazy, and also, going through with everything with my dad. And then May of '95, I got promoted to manager, or asset protection manager. And I was making, get ready for this, $24,000 a year. And I thought,
we were fine because
Yeah.
I was working too. Well, once Jessica was born, I did not work anymore.
Yeah.
I was a stay-at-home mom. God love him.
but yeah, so I
loved it.
thought we were making crazy bank, but when I really look at it now, I was making pennies because I was working, when I became a manager, I was working minimum of 50 hours a week, minimum. And then sometimes I would put in, not all the time, but sometimes I do 60, 70, and when inventory was coming, you ain't leaving. Holidays are coming, you got to 1 day off a week. And that's just how retail was. And so I lost my train of thought. Where were we going with that?
Well, when you got promoted.
Oh, so I got promoted May of '95. My dad passed away the next month in June, and I just kind of kept trucking. I know how my dad was, and my dad would have been like, listen, I'm gone. You got a family. You got to keep moving.
I gotta say, Target was amazing during that time too. Like Target is a different animal than it was back then. We had everybody at his funeral. It was a family back then. I don't feel like that when I walk in there anymore.
And even as busy as we were, it wasn't. Hey, listen, you need to go take care of your family.
Yep.
And that was it. And my boss was amazing. He took full care of my store while I was gone because I worked in a really, really, really bad store, and they knew, listen, I'm not around. Things can kind of go awry, but I didn't take. I maybe took a couple of days off, and I was right back to work.
Normal. It's sometimes best to just get back into it.
Yeah, what was I going to do sitting at home?
Yeah.
Nothing. So, I went back to work. And that year, which was crazy, so I became a manager June of '95. No, I'm sorry, May of '95. And that year, I caught, honestly, I can't even tell you, it was well over 200 shoplifters that year. Now that's a full year. And then within my time as a manager, I caught 26 employees within 6 months of theft. But that whole year before I became a manager, I think we had caught 55 total. So with my previous boss. And so that even though I wasn't a manager for a full year, I actually won Manager of the Year award because I caught the most employees by myself.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. It really was. And it was, like I said, it was a lot of fun. There was some tough times for sure, but for the most part, it was a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, and then there was one time, I'll just briefly go over this, but he actually opened up a new Super Target in New York, and we went up to New York for a year, and that's when Jordan came along. I was pregnant that whole year, but that was fun. Anything special about that you want to talk about?
That was an experience because, I mean,
it was a small town. We'd never been to New York, and we just decided to.
Target was just opening in the state of New York, and no, that wasn't a super. They weren't supers yet.
Are you sure?
Yeah, Indiana was a super.
Yeah.
But they,
you opened that one.
They had just opened 4 Targets up in like Buffalo, Rochester, Niagara Falls. They had opened 4 stores up there, and then my store was in outside of Binghamton, New York, upstate, and that was the only one far away. I was like 4 hours away from them up there, and so it was I guess a satellite store back then. I'm sure there's a ton of them up there now, but back then that's where it was. Only that was a 5th store, and
96.
growing up, In Florida, you know, I'm actually, I was born in New York, but we moved when I was 6 years old to Florida. So I don't really remember how cold it got. I don't remember any of that. And yeah, that was an experience in itself. But what's crazy is how long ago as that was 90. We moved up there
96.
November of 96, and then we left. I moved back because they moved back earlier than me, a month earlier, to Florida, November of 97. So we were only up there a year.
Yeah.
But
this wasn't for us. It was a great experience.
Yeah.
Great time. You have still connections. He
Yeah,
still talks to
I still
people
talk to
that,
3 of the guys that worked for me back
Yeah.
then. I still talk to them. That's how long I haven't seen them since then, but other than social media. But yeah, that was an experience. I don't remember any like massive cases up there. This was a weird one. Yeah, this was my second to last day there because I left Thanksgiving Day to come back to Florida. I was sitting in my office and I've seen some videos on YouTube, and they've got much better cameras than I had back then.
Yeah.
At black and
Oh
white.
yeah, it was almost like pixelated. You really
Yeah.
just had to.
And actually, at
your
that
own.
store, we had pretty good cameras compared to what I had in Florida back then. We had black and whites that didn't move. And I was sitting in the camera room, and I was talking to the guy that was going to replace me. I had hired him. He had been there with me for a year. Wonderful guy. He's now retired. And we were just kind of talking, and I was like, hey, you got to make sure you're doing this, doing that, whatever. And I looked up to the cameras, and I see one of my employees, one of my guys that was uniformed, was in the electronic stockroom. And he's shoving games down his pants.
Oh my gosh.
And so I looked, because we played jokes on each other like you would not believe. And it usually, within us, it wasn't as bad, but it was us against the pharmacy. It was crazy in that store. Just fun. Just having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But we played jokes on each other from time to time. So I
Yeah.
I saw it going on, and he's talking to me about something, and I look over at him. I'm like, hey, don't be messing around. You know, today's my last day. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, what's this guy doing? And he looks up, and we're just kind of both looking at it. He goes, I'm telling you, I don't know what's going on. And I said, listen, don't mess around. I'm about to call my boss and just let him know that we're going to take this guy out. Not like, you know.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, I swear to you, we do not know what's going on. This is not a joke. And the whole time he's just shoving, what was the game back then? Was it Sega? I don't know. Anyway, he's just shoving games down his pants.
Nintendo. Wow.
And so I call my boss, just kind of give him a heads up, and he's like, yeah, he walks out the door, take him out. So, and I just kept saying to him, hey, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure? He goes, yes, I'm positive. So the guy goes out the door, and we came running out, and he was shocked. Like he froze. He just kind of stood there at the front of the store. And, you know, I really took it personally because this guy worked for me.
Yeah.
You know, he was
You should
within
know
my
better.
department.
Knows where the cameras
Yeah.
are.
And so, like I said, this is the Wednesday before that Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And so brought him back in, sat him down, and I said, give me all the games. And he starts taking all the games out of his pockets and inside his pants. And we're just sitting there just in shock. Like, I cannot believe this guy was doing this. Great. He was, well, listen, I'm not going to, he was a very nice guy. Unfortunate circumstances were going on in his life, and he felt that that's the way that he could get himself out. You know, instead of asking for help, this is what he did,
Yeah.
right? It's not a shot against him. I hope that he changed his life after that. You know, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody makes bad choices, and he made a bad choice that day. And, you know, he went to jail, and from what I heard, he spent the weekend in there because everything was closed.
Oh, it was holiday.
Yeah. So that's one of the cases that I remember most from up there because I took it personally.
Yeah.
Because the guy worked for me, and it didn't matter. I mean, he was one of, I think, a handful that worked within the department that were doing what they thought was best for them at that moment. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was New York. But I mean, I worked in, like I said, I started in Palm Beach County. I worked in down in Broward County. I had a store down there for a year, and that was an experience.
Yeah.
But when stores in Palm Beach, don't let Palm Beach fool you, right?
Yeah.
There's Palm Beach, and then there's West Palm Beach. Those are two different things. So when somebody says Palm Beach County, it's very vast, and there was a lot of crazy experiences there.
Yep. Well, so you didn't stay at Target forever.
No.
And I'm thinking this might be a 2-part interview because I want to first continue going through your career with this, and then I think the second part will be the cases.
Yeah.
Then we'll start talking about cases because, but he didn't stay at Target forever. But I gotta say, he left at one point for a little bit because we, for personal reasons, we had our car stolen in less than a year twice, and we were just sick of Palm Beach. If that tells you anything, Palm Beach County. There was a lot of crime, and I think it's worse now. But so we decided to pack it up and leave, right? And you left Target and everything was like, so let's start fresh. And that didn't work out as we had hoped, jobs wise. And so you did make a request to come back, and they took him back because of his history, and your history with them was so good.
And
so
I had great references too. I mean, it was just.
Yeah.
It was a matter of a couple of phone calls, and I was back within a week.
Yeah.
I came back January of 2000.
And I think they were very much though like, this is it.
That was it for me.
Like they let us come back from New York because they knew it wasn't our place. We didn't fit in not fit in, but we just didn't like the cold and stuff. And
we missed our family.
Yeah. And so I think that's why they're like, all right, we've made 2 little concessions for you. This is it. And then Radio Shack happened.
Yeah.
Probably,
yeah.
I mean, he really loved Target, but you really loved Radio Shack.
Target was great.
Target got you where you were.
I feel like I grew up in Target.
Yeah.
Because at that time, I really was one of the youngest. Especially even within my department, I was one of the youngest. So I'm dealing with folks that are in their either later 20s, 30s. My boss was in his 40s, some people in their 50s. And so I'm already dealing with older people. So it forced me to grow up quickly, and kind of think how they did. And I just talked to one of the guys, I've known him now well over 30 years. And I told him, I said, you were one of 3 that I learned my interview tactics from, because each one of them one of them was very strong, very aggressive, just went in and he got you. The other one was more very monotone, just kind of stared, emotionless, and just kind of scared you into, what it was. And then not scared, but he just almost like no empathy, no sympathy. He just kind of just stayed on task. And then the third one was the opposite of both of them. He was very nice, but he got he got what he wanted out of it. And so I learned from all 3 of those guys how to do my own interviews, and this is
interviewing
employees. Interviewing
employees
employees
that have stolen, though, not like interviewing for position. This is interviewing them to get them to admit to all the stuff that they've done.
Yeah, and listen, all the time you already have them. You already have. If you're talking to them, if someone's watching this, and if this happens to you or happened to you, but if this happens to you, if they pull you in and start talking to you, they already know.
Yeah,
they're not wondering. They already know everything. They already know who.
And have the proof.
they know who, they know what, they know where, they know when, they know how. The only thing they don't know is why. Right? They don't know why. You're the only person. That person that's doing that is the only person that knows why you did it. Right? Whether you were angry and you just did it, or somebody forced you to do it. A family member outside of or a friend, and you owed them money, and they said, "Hey, you need to give me some stuff because you owe me money." So many examples from all that stuff, but yeah, that's where that kind of stems from. But when I had interviewed for a position that I wanted badly there.
Yeah, I remember that.
I really, really wanted. I wanted out of the stores. I had done the stores so long. I was very successful working within the stores, but there was a position that I wanted badly. It was a market investigator position. So it was basically you covered an area. I don't remember how wide it was, but kind of like maybe a full state or something. I can't remember. And that's what I really wanted. I knew that I would really do well with that. Excuse me. And I interviewed for it twice, I think, in Florida, and they passed me up because I didn't have a degree. And then I did it a third time, but I thought the third time was a charm up in Indiana, and how everything kind of led to, I was like, okay, this one sounds very promising. This one looks good. And they slapped me again with that. And my boss was like, just go get your degree. And I was like, my man, I'm already working minimum 50 hours a week. You know, and this is during that time. You know, I'm working minimum 50 hours a week. I'm married. I have 2 little girls.
Very involved in sports and stuff at night. So
I don't have that time to say, okay, now I'm going to take classes in college. You know, and secondly, I'm not a school guy. I hated school. The only thing that really kept me in school was sports. That was it. If I wasn't playing football or baseball and all that stuff, I would have left. I would have left somewhere in high school. I hated it. And that's why I didn't go to college. I went to college for one day. I did. I walked into college. I went to Northwood University. I can't remember where, Northwood Institute. Yeah. Went in there. I walked in there the day of. I was already working 2 jobs at the time, way before Hope. And the professor was talking about, Bill, you need this, and this. I'm like, man, nothing's going to keep me in here because I'm not playing sports anymore. Yeah. And that was it. I was out of there. So my schooling was a school of hard knocks. And, you know, I feel better for it. Now, I want our daughters to, yes. You know, yeah, that was, because it was a hard road for sure.
Yeah, someone that is completely qualified for the job, but just because he didn't have that little thing at the end of his name, having a degree, so.
And I told him, I'm like, look at my history. I've worked in the worst
job
stores.
Experience should really have been it. But.
Yeah.
So that kind of made you mad. He was mad at that point because he's like, this history, this family that I'm in, and they're kind of screwing me over. So that's when you started looking, and this was just the biggest blessing.
It was within 2 weeks. I'd thrown my resume out there, and I got contacted from Radio Shack, and they were looking for a regional loss prevention manager, and I didn't even know what that meant. You know, I didn't know, you know, oh, it's just in Indianapolis. I had no idea, you know, what it meant. And so they called me for an interview, and I went down to Indianapolis. We lived in Fishers, Indiana, but Fishers was like on the northeast side of Indy. Drove down to Indianapolis and met with the director of loss prevention, and he was one of those men that you just looked at. He was older, you know. He was probably in his maybe late 60s, early 70s, roughly, give or take, and nice suit, briefcase, tall, and he just looked like, man, this guy, you respect this man. Yeah. And I understand. And he was former military. He served in Vietnam. He was that man, you know? And I just saw him as, okay, you know, I'm going to be respectful. And I was. And we talked, and, you know, because of what was going on with with everything that was going on with my, you know, not having a degree and all that stuff, that was always in my head. And that's unfortunately the first thing that came out of my mouth was, I don't have a degree. And he just kind of looked at my resume. Now, we had already spoken a little bit, and he looked at my resume. He goes, well, is your resume correct? And I said, yes, sir. And he's like, well, that's all I need. I like you. I'd like to give you a shot. And I was like, let's go. This is awesome. So my pay went nicer. It was a lot nicer. And they also said, you know what? I wish I remember how much it was. I mean, it was so long ago. That was 2002. Then they gave me a vehicle. They gave me a Ford Taurus.
Yeah.
Laptop.
That old looking Taurus, the still roundy looking one, not like what you got now.
And then they gave me a Ford Taurus, and then they gave me 2 cell phones. So one was Sprint and one was Verizon, because they both were vendors for Radio Shack at the time. So they gave me 2 phones.
Yeah, the laptop, all that stuff, and plus an office in their
in their district office
District
in Indianapolis.
office, and then he had a wide range. How
Yeah,
how
so-
wide was your range?
So I had Central Indiana, I had down to Louisville, Kentucky, and then the outskirts of there, which is Elizabethtown and all that. Then down to Lexington and that whole area, and then up to Cincinnati. So it was kind of like this. It went like a square, and it was easy because it was the highways were
Everything was
simple.
close enough, too,
Yeah.
though. It wasn't like
It's not like here in
you
Florida.
could
where-
travel and be home in the same
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
And I had 122 stores at the beginning when I first started, and then it changed because they bought out a cell phone vendor that was selling phones in Sam's Clubs. They had their own little kiosks that they rented in Sam's Club, but Radio Shack bought them out. But this was like my last year there. So I went from 122 stores to 145 locations at that
Yeah.
point. So it did sound like a lot, and it was a lot, but if you learn how to manage it, I was home every weekend, which I never was at Target.
He wasn't micromanaged because he did his job. And what?
Because they were based in Texas.
We were
and-
just talking about this the other day, that not even your full year and you got what award?
Oh, no, well, there?
Yeah.
I was there, I was my second year.
Oh, okay.
It was my
I thought it
second
was-
year. No, it was my first year. It didn't because the numbers weren't there.
But they did give him a bonus.
They
That's
did
what
give me
it was.
bonus.
They
That
did
was-
give him a bonus, even though because he'd been doing so well, they were like, "We're going to go ahead and approve
I wasn't,
a bonus for you." And we were
because
like,
I wasn't there long enough. But he called me that night and said, I'm going to give you a bonus because you're killing it. But what was happening, there was a lot of fraud going on within the store. And we started kind of clearing some things out. So the numbers were kind of skewed a little bit because they were messing with the numbers a little bit. But as I started kind of clearing these people out and bringing in better quality candidates and getting some people to retire, yeah, I'm viewing this.
Reliving
As,
this
yeah,
in his
it's the
head.
funniest thing. Then things changed. So that second year, it was funny. I want to say we were in Vegas, but I can't because we would leave once a year for a huge convention from everybody. And I was hanging out with a bunch of guys that had my same job, but in other places within the country. And they were all older than me. Again, I was the youngest one by far, and just well-respected men, right? They were very well-respected men. And all former military, all just good guys. And I hope they're all still doing well. And we were sitting together, and I was just having a few, and we were just kind of going back and forth. And I think they knew, but they didn't say anything to me. And I'm just like, man, I'm hanging out with the guy from Kansas City, and he's like, man, only the guys that kiss butt are the only ones that get awards. I'm like, yeah, that's right. And they're all laughing at the table. And then they call me up for Regional Manager of the Year. And I was like, oh, no way. And they started laughing, and I walked up and got the award. And that was really cool because I hadn't been there, just a little over a year. And
that was Radio Shack at that time was big, and they
They're
had all
huge.
those like actors and actresses sponsoring. He met so many famous people.
I met the Verizon. He would
Can
say?
you hear me
Can
now?
you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
I met that guy, Vanessa Williams,
Yeah, that's one top on his list.
Rick Fox. I met LaDainian
Diamond
Tomlinson,
Phillips.
Lou Diamond Phillips. Oh,
He was the best.
I met Lou Diamond Phillips. I really wanted to meet him. Listen, such a nice guy. We were sitting there just talking like we had been friends
Yeah.
our whole lives and just laughing it up. And I'm feeling someone just punching me in my back as I'm sitting there talking to him. And it's my district manager from Cincinnati, because she's just foaming out the mouth to meet him. And she's like, will you finally stop talking to him, please? And I'm like, well, it was nice to meet you. And I got a picture with him, and I left. I don't even know where that picture is.
Well, it was on the flip phones, and it was a horrible picture.
Yeah.
I think we printed it
somewhere.
somewhere. It's very awful, but I think we have it. It just
I met him.
so much fun for you.
I met Howie Long that played for the Raiders.
Yeah.
I met Terry Bradshaw that played for the Steelers. So and I met Junior Seau. And if you guys don't know who Junior Seau is, Junior Seau played for the San Diego Chargers. He was a linebacker, amazing football player, Hall of Famer. and he played for the Chargers, and I'm a huge Raiders fan. And I met him. I have a picture of him. It's on one of my YouTube channels. And I walked up to him and I was like, man, Junior, I'm a big fan, but I'm a big Raiders fan. He goes, we're not all perfect. And he shook my hand and we just sat there and just talked for a while. And he was such a nice guy. And I think it was about a year or two later where,
he's no longer with us.
He's no longer with us. Yeah. So it was just an amazing memory. But yeah, Radio Shack was so awesome. I loved it there. I never complained.
Yeah,
it was
and I
just
don't know
awesome.
why we left.
Yeah, that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah.
It really does. And that next, I don't even want to say the next name, but the next venture from there, which I shouldn't have left. That was my
Nope.
that was my big regret, was leaving. Although they did close about 4 years later, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would have been out anyways, but I went to somewhere else, and I only really left for the money. That was it. I mean, it was a big hike from what I was making to that next level. Plus, the bonus was amazing.
Yeah.
But I went from that area. It sounds like a lot, but it really wasn't. I mean, I would drive. We had store manager meetings once a month in each district. So I had a district in Indianapolis, a district in Cincinnati. Or they were actually multi-districts.
Yeah.
Lexington and then Louisville. And I would go, so I kind of set it up with my district managers and said, hey, listen, when I arrive there, can I do my portion first? So I can kind of go on to the next place. So I do Indianapolis in the first thing. Right when they started, they let me go. And then I drive 2 hours to Cincinnati. When I got to Cincinnati, I would have lunch with them, and they would let me do my piece after lunch. And then I drove down to Lexington, did my piece with Lexington, drove to Louisville. By the time I was getting to Louisville, it was getting close to them wrapping it up, dinner time, whatever. So I would do my part. Sometimes I would have dinner with them, and then I would head back home from there. So it would be 2.5 hours from there. So that was once a month, doing that. And then finally, I ended up not doing Lexington much after that, but that was my route once a month. And I think of that now, and it's like, I just drove down to Orlando yesterday. It was an hour and 40 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know how I used to do this. I don't know how I used to do it. That was 2 hours.
Yeah.
Coming north, and I just can't drive
It's
those.
youth, man. It's easier when, we're not old, but it's youth. We were able to do everything. But
I did leave Radio Shack. I shouldn't have done it, but like I said, I left for the money. We were young, and
yeah, we
and
made
we were
every
kids.
decision together. And then
That was
when
tough.
we see what's going on with Radio Shack, anyways,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
pretty much
but-
no longer either.
yeah.
So it was just time.
But that next situation was bad all the way around.
Yeah.
I had 126 stores in 16 states, and I was never home. I mean, I would leave Monday, I'd go to my office, and then I was on a plane.
They didn't give you
going
the
somewhere.
same kind of freedom you had at Radio Shack either, though.
No.
There were not some.
No. And so, like I said, things just went south there after a year, I think it was, roughly about a year, and I was out of there. But with my experience and all that stuff, I'm like, man, I could get another one. Nope.
No.
So we went through some rough times there for a few
Yeah.
years, give or take. I mean, we did kind of bounce back out of it. And what was it, 2010? I went to Home Depot. Went back and just as a, just catching shoplifters and employees again. And that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun at Home Depot. I really did. But again, I made another decision and went to Lowe's. Didn't like working there at all. I was there for 4 months, maybe 5 months. And nothing, no shot against Lowe's. Wonderful store, but it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And I left. We moved to Florida, and I got a job with Disney, and then started working at Kmart in Kissimmee. It's no longer there. Kmart's gone. But I was there, 2 weeks? maybe 3 weeks.
There's a funny story there, but we won't get into
yeah.
it.
I'll tell it
Maybe
briefly.
in the next
Yeah,
part
I'll
too.
tell you guys it was very yeah.
But that's where it ended.
That was where it ended. So 2011 is when I ended my career in loss prevention. I've never been back. I know that if even, I watched, and I'm going to show you some videos as we kind of continue with this video, with this channel. But I just watched some of these videos now that back when I was doing this stuff, YouTube and none of this stuff existed. And I would have loved to have shown off, hey, we're looking for this guy, we're looking for this girl in our stores, and now they come in with body cam with the police that are coming in and they're sitting in the offices with these people. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like, we never had that. So it's neat seeing it. I'm sure things have changed since I left. I think now a lot of most stores are now kind of no contact, where you can't, you can't put your hands on
Can't
them.
do anything, yeah.
But I don't know if everybody's like that. So I know some stores are. And it's just like, hey, come back inside the store. And then they say no. That's why I think you see a lot of these videos that you're going to watch with me, that you do see the police already there. So I think now what they're doing is when these guys are in the stores stealing and they know who they are, they're calling the police to be there. So when they walk out the doors, the police are there and the police can take them whenever they want to. So, which is cool. I think that that avoids a lot of problems. So, but yeah, so that's what we're gonna be doing. That's what sorry, this video is actually pretty long. So.
I know, that's why I figured we'd do 2 parts, because
Yeah.
we want to hear about your cases and some of the crazy, wildest ones. So
Yeah.
But we at least wanted to get your career and show that he knows what he's talking about. He's got a lot of experience under his belt, and I hope this is interesting for you guys, because it was for us, and still to this day, every once in a while, I'll get a story that I haven't heard. I don't remember.
Yeah, because like I said, she would be the one that I would come home and I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Babe, you're not gonna believe what happened today," and listen, and we'll talk about, I want you guys to ask me questions too. Let me know what your thoughts. Did you ever experience? Someone had commented on that first video I did and said, I worked in retail for 30 years, and they would be witnesses. They'd come in and help loss prevention if it was a female witness. They had to have a female witness in the office if they caught a female. So, if you've had experiences like that, please let me know. And, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I hope you guys enjoy this, because it's going to be, and I'm going to have other people, hopefully, with, just kind of pop in and, share that. But yeah, Hope was, like I said, Hope was with me, and she would be my fall girl when I had a crazy
And
case.
sometimes I would know them, because I remember I worked at Target too. So not all of
Those
them,
were
but so many other stores. But
And we'll talk about it when we talk about cases, those cases where, you got to remember that you're working with these people, right? You're in that store for so many hours that they become, almost as familiar as your family, because you're seeing them almost more than I was seeing Hope and the girls.
yeah.
And then something
to-
pops up on a report one day, and you're just kind of like, no, come on, no. And then you see it on video, and now this person that you may have just had lunch with, or
Yeah.
just met their family, or whatever, it doesn't matter, whatever it was, now you're having to sit down and talk to them about something that they just did that was dishonest. And that became tough sometimes. I kind of I was able to break away from that personal side of things. I don't remember ever really being
No, you never had a problem.
super.
You never had a problem with it.
Super. I mean, maybe just
you were
be
very
upset
much
with them, but
well, you were just so family oriented at that point. Everything you were doing was for your family, just to make sure that you were doing that everything he was doing. He wanted to get home to us at the end of the day.
And like I said, I understood. I never sat there and judged them for what they were doing.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not in their shoes. I don't know. It was me to say, well, listen, man, if you needed $10, you could have just asked me, or whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever it was, it was easy for me to say that. So I just made sure that I didn't judge them and made the situation as smooth as I can make it go, as easy as I can make it go. Some people made it more difficult than others, but
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that another time. So yeah, so thanks for doing this with me, and
Yeah.
thanks for dealing with me for all those years. Ralphie is actually a security officer.
He's got his security shirt on today. He wanted to play the part.
Yeah,
But yeah.
he did
course.
it with me. So, but yeah, it was. I hope you guys stick around and like, share, subscribe. Next video will be a reaction video to a shoplifting incident.
Okay.
And I'm trying to find videos of the actual thefts taking place. That's been a little harder to find. I'm finding more videos that are after the fact, where the police are arriving and they're showing what's going on. So, but hopefully, as time kind of wears on, I can see some of that stuff. Yeah. And if you're watching this and you did this, you know, if you're currently doing this now with loss prevention, or you did it in the past, I'd love to talk to you. So let me know. I'd love to share your experiences as well.
Yeah.
And especially, I would love to talk to someone that's doing it now. You know, we don't have to be on video. We can do audio, whatever the case may be. But because I'd love to know, you know, what's changed from the time that it was 2011. So that's been what, 14 years?
Yeah.
Something like that. So yeah. So all right, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Take care.
Bye.